Hi everyone! Today in this video we're gonna develop another mental model that can be helpful for you in order to obviously apply them in your decision making process. Since your ability to take best decisions as it's what ultimately is more like connected with having good outcomes in your life is having as much better information about the world as possible. And this is where so enters the paper or the role of the mental models as representations about how the reality works. And then so today we're gonna talk about the one that's taken from the economy field that is called the perfect competition. As was in the first video, we've talked now about structures of market, and then so perfect competition is another structure of market that's studied so in economy. So what could be a definition so to perfect competition? Perfect competition is a theoretical market structure where there are many buyers and sellers, none of whom has the power to influence prices, and all products they tend to be like perceived as homogeneous. So these are like the tendency of markets where the people or the companies they produce so products to get consumed, and doesn't exist that much of differentiation between them. And what it tends to say is that in terms so of markets that doesn't exist that much of differentiation, the reality is that doesn't exist someone that has more power than other ones. So doesn't exist a monopoly, neither oligopoly. So doesn't exist someone that has so the supremacy of value and so can kind of play with that in terms of increasing the prices to maximize their profit as much as possible. Even companies all strange tries to so maximize the profit. The reality is that neither holds is easy. It's depending of the competition that exists, how much so my product is valuable for the people, how much is so differentiated, and perfect competition will exist so for markets that doesn't exist that much of differentiation. And what is the key idea? In this environment, the prices are determined solely by supply and demand. And all participants are price takers, meaning they must accept the market price as given. So doesn't exist someone that has the power to influence the price because doesn't exist a monopoly. And if doesn't exist monopoly, no one can so influence the price that's so produced. It's pretty nice, and so but obviously with that we're more so depending with the macro scenario and not so with the willingness of just a few of people. And then so what are the characteristics that make so the perfect competition that we're gonna see in theory is the ideal for the consumer because it's where tendency to see markets that have lower prices as possible. But then, so what are the characteristics of perfect competition? The large number of participants. There are so many sellers and buyers that no single participant can affect the market prices. Homogeneous products in terms of doesn't exist that much of differentiation, so the goods or services offered are identical or perfectly substitutable. So if one of the companies doesn't produce more, exists all other ones that are able to produce the same. Those is like barriers to entry, and then so it's easier for exist the flexibility between the markets. So consumers have no reason to prefer one seller over another based on product differences. The perfect information. All market participants have complete and simultaneous access to all relevant information, enabling optimal decision making. So I have access to all the options available, all the companies, what they produce, and their prices, and other information that are useful. Free entry and exit. There are no significant barriers preventing new firms from entering or leaving the markets, which so keeps the market dynamic and competitive. And price takers, firms and consumers accept the market price as given. They do not have the power to influence due to the competitive nature of the market. But then, so what are real world examples of that? What are the examples of markets that does exist that much differentiation between the products that the people offer? The other thing that so makes the prices being the way that is just so the balance between supply and demand in geographical zones or whatever it is, so the region of commerce. So we have the agricultural markets While no market is perfectly competitive, in reality, many agricultural markets such as wheat or corn production closely resemble perfect competition because they all tend to offer the same. It's the same material. It's difficult to someone differ for presenting a specific different type of popcorn. So the only thing that can influence can be in a region like that is really easy. So to produce the popcorns, and then so in that probably has a tendency to the prices being lower, while in other ones just the supply and demand in terms of the supply being lower because can be in a region that popcorn is difficult to make. So the popcorn is offered the same as the other one quality, but just because what differs and makes the price being different, it's just simply the supply and demand difference. So between the markets, the regions, so that market is happening. We have the commodity, the markets for commodities like crude oil or gold. They're also example as the goods are standardized and competition is first among suppliers. And this happens as well in theoretical simulations. So normally it happens, economists and universities, they often use the perfect competition model in simulations to predict how changes in supply and demand might affect prices and quantities, providing so a baseline for understanding more complex market dynamics. Implications and obviously as well the challenge that comes with stimulating the perfect competition, and this is something that exists. Allocative efficiency. In a perfectly competitive market, resources are allocated in the most efficient way possible, maximizing so societal welfare. So what tends to happen here? The reality is that so what happens is that if exists so low time barriers to entry, and the reality exists competition, I was gonna have the tendency to go for markets that so I can have more profit as possible, and then so this creates flowing. Sometimes some markets are a bit more saturated, while in other ways, in other times will be so other markets, and then so if exists that ability to flow doesn't exist like something that like regulation that avoids so people to flow, companies to flow for markets they're able. Obviously, it is is like a bit wishful thinking, but the reality is that if we're able so to making adaptive the companies, it's obviously something that will be ideal. So it's easier to specialize in producing something will be good, and then so it's other area that needs to be more profit. As quicker is it is so to learn how to build a company. So in the other market as well, better it is to a perfect competition type of market being more reliable and being more possible to exist because it all tends to benefit if so the perfect competition exists because exists so people by competing in the supplier's side then it reduces so the prices because creates price war prices and making so things making more cheaper for the people. And then so obviously what can happen as well, zero economy profit in the long run. So due to free entry, any short-term profits are completed that way, leading firms to earn just enough to cover their costs, which promotes efficiency but may reduce incentives for innovation. So we have like a paradox. While this doesn't make what? Some specific, just a few, accumulate too much resources in terms of money, but reality is something that as well creates a lack of ability so to it doesn't exist so incentives to people betting and innovating and paying too much time because they will get that quickly, so will exist new people that will enter. So now for that perfect competition is almost impossible to exist markets with perfect competition. We have to making people have differentiation and people receiving the benefits from the differentiation that they create. And then so that's why enters the patent. So if I create something different, other ones cannot copy almost like the same as I did. I just like I pay, I get a patent, and other ones cannot do it the way that I do. What are the limitations? So, while the models are extremely useful for theoretical analysis and seems to be good for real users, the reality is that product differentiation doesn't exist. It's difficult to do something that doesn't exist. The reality is entry barriers. It always obviously it's not easier to kind of be easier, so it's difficult for sometimes the market's profits to already exist all other ones that so will making competitions to avoid monopoly. It's difficult, And then so obviously it doesn't play with the nature of human that is working by incentives, and then so if I'm in a market that's quickly so becomes saturated, I'm not gonna so get fixed in a one and create so not a job work that's static. And this is obviously bad as well for the employers and employees. They always have like to reformulate the type of strategy, and this creates a bit of stress. So what we have to get in count. In summary, so perfect competition tends to be like a way, but we have to think, we have to take some knowledge, some good things that can come with perfect competition, but not fall in wishful thinking and understand that sometimes we have to arrange like a middle term, and neither will go for markets that just benefits it, just like great benefits for the consumer because doesn't so stimulate the entrepreneurship, neither markets that just so stimulate the entrepreneurship because they don't so as well make the people get the goods that they tend to deserve. So I expect these videos help you to gain certain type of insight, and I expect you as well to see in that channel for other videos. So don't forget to subscribe and see you in the next one.